dead puppies.
What the? These are all spooky, creepy. Let's just go into it and see before I start rambling again. It's creepy. That's literally what it's like. And then they come at the end. They come to the edge of your bed.
Move your arms and legs, you begin to panic. Your head is full of a million thoughts.
I don't know about the blinking TV.
A terrifying entity. No matter how hard you try to move, you can't. You're paralyzed with fear. It's painful and terrifying.
Literally what it's like.
The weight
It's
on your
wild.
chest becomes heavier and heavier. You can feel your heart beating fast.
And then just imagine that, and then your lady's just having an awesome dream. She's like in Hawaii, like parasailing or something like that, and I'm over here hanging out with my sleep paralysis demon, like holy shit.
That. Is this not a video?
It says
That's a photo.
it's a sleep paralysis.
How do they come out? I don't think that's true. I
Well,
don't
it's
think they
just-
come out in photos.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had the chance to
Medical
photograph
condition,
them.
see world. Sleep paralysis.
Hi, friend. Let me say what's really going on here. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night and not been able to move? Maybe there was even a shadowy figure staring at you? Well, it may be a huge warning, but most people don't know to look
That's
out
cool.
for it. You see, there's a huge myth going around that this is because of a spiritual attack or part of astral projection, which is cute, but the truth is actually even more fascinating. My name is Jesse Lyon. I'm a professional dream researcher, and this is what it actually means. When you sleep, your brain disconnects from your body, so that way when you move in your dream, you don't accidentally jump out of bed. But when we become stressed, have poor sleep, or start a new medication, our mind and body can get out of sync, causing us to wake up before our body reconnects with our mind, resulting in hallucinations, paralysis, and even feelings of suffocation.
Literally
to learn the
what
full
I was
details,
told.
check me out here. And to learn the real science of what your dreams mean, just tap follow.
It doesn't make it any less creepy. It's still scary.
Yeah,
You know?
100%. But I mean, it makes sense why we do it.
Sleep paralysis. It's real, it's terrifying,
Oh,
but here's how you
I like Dr.
prevent
Mike.
it. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night and found yourself literally unable to move? Maybe even had visual, tactile hallucinations? Then you may have experienced sleep paralysis, a terrifying ordeal that affects up to 10% of the
See the
population.
damn
During sleep
demon?
paralysis, despite your conscious state, your muscles are frozen due to disruption between REM sleep and wakefulness. While there's no definitive cause of this disruption, it has been linked to some medical conditions. Insomnia, shift work, narcolepsy, PTSD, anxiety, stress, and panic disorder. So what can you do to prevent this? Get 7 to 9 hours of sleep nightly, go to bed around the same time, exercise regularly, don't eat,
simple
smoke,
stuff.
drink alcohol or caffeine right before bed, and don't sleep on your back. If all that fails, don't hesitate and reach out to a sleep specialist near you. Or you could check out my sleep hacks video right down below. Sweet dreams.
Is like get more sleep, right? Okay. The thing is that when people talk about like don't sleep on your back, like I get sleep paralysis on my side. I've had sleep paralysis on my side. Like it doesn't matter. Right? But I'm assuming you get it more on your back. But that's interesting.
I don't think I will ever recover after learning about what happened to Annalise Michel and listening to the audio tapes of her exorcism. On July 1st, 1976, 23 Michel would die after undergoing 67 exorcisms over the span of 10 months for demonic possession. What she experienced leading up to her death is horrifying. So Annalise lived in West Germany with her 3 sisters and parents, and they grew up very religious as Roman Catholics, and they went to Mass twice a week. When she was 16 years old, she suddenly blacked out at school and walked around in a trance-like state. Her parents
the
didn't quite
Emily
understand
Rose
why,
story?
but
I
a
think it's
year later
inspired
she
by this.
blacked out once again. She was in bed this time and woke up in another trance-like state, having wet the bed. Her parents then took her to the doctor where she was diagnosed with psychosis caused by temporal lobe epilepsy. She was then put on a string of medication to try and treat both, but nothing worked. And she was eventually also diagnosed with depression. By 20 years old, Annalise's mental condition got even worse, and it was at this point that she refused to be around anyone or anything religious. In 1970, she had a devastating debilitating third seizure, and after this, she started seeing the devil everywhere she went, and she would hear voices telling her that she was damned and that she was going to rot in hell. After 5 years of no improvement on medication, Annalise and her parents began to think that she was possessed by a demon. So they appealed to the Catholic Church for an exorcism, but initially they were rejected. They lost all hope in traditional doctors and medication, and eventually they stopped going to the doctor altogether. But in that time frame, Annalise's behavior grew more and more terrifying. She became incredibly aggressive and would hurt herself. She drank her own urine and would eat insects and crawl under tables. It got so bad that she even barked like a dog for 2 days, would compulsively do up to 400 squats a day, and even bit the head off of a dead bird. She would then resort to growling and was then taken to a commune. During her time there, she couldn't even be in the same room as a crucifix, and she would refuse to drink holy water. When she would walk up to the shrine, she physically couldn't enter because she said that the soil burned like fire and she couldn't take it any longer. Annalise said that when she looked around at the others praying, it looked like they were gnashing their teeth at her. It was there that she was determined to be suffering from demonic possession. In 1975, the family finally got approval from a local bishop to begin performing exorcisms, but this was ordered to be in total secrecy. The exorcisms would be performed by 2 priests and started in late September of 1975. Over the next 10 months, Annalise would be subjected to 1 or 2 exorcisms a week, and those would last up to 4 hours long. In total, she underwent 67 exorcisms, and the audio tapes from them are terrifying. During these exorcisms, Annalise said that she was possessed by these 6 demons, and one thing that she said will forever haunt me. She said, quote, "People are as stupid as pigs. They think it's all over after death. It goes on," end quote. These exorcisms were so violent that she broke both of her knees and had ripped the tendons from
right?
continually kneeling in prayer. She also began refusing to eat food. On July 1st, 1976, 10 months after the first exorcism, Annalise died. Her official cause of death was from malnutrition and dehydration. She was in a state of near starvation for nearly a year, and she weighed only 66 pounds. Because of the state she was in, Annalise's parents and the 2 priests performing the exorcisms were arrested, and their case went to trial. At the trial, doctors argued that Annalise wasn't ever possessed, and that the manifestations of demonic possession were a psychological effect of her strict religious upbringing and her epilepsy. The defense argued that nothing they did was illegal, and in court they played the audio tapes from the exorcisms to prove that she was indeed possessed. They also said that Annalise was finally freed of demonic possession right before she died. It was proven that her death could have been prevented, and all parties were found guilty of negligent homicide. The priests were sentenced to 6 months in jail, but that was later reduced to 3 years probation and having to pay a fine. Although her parents were found guilty, under German law, they weren't charged because they'd already suffered enough. Several years after the exorcism of Annalise Michel, the Catholic Church took back the claim that she was ever possessed. I first learned about this case after watching this movie, which is loosely based on Annalise, and the movie still, to this day, scares me so bad. This is actually the only topic that I am genuinely scared to talk about. Like, it is such bad energy. I don't think I will ever recover after learning about—
That is rough.
That's tough. That's scary as fuck.
This was the most evil woman to ever live. Her name was Linda May. She was born in 1923 in a small town in Iowa. To everyone, she seemed like a quiet little farm and spoke with a soft, kind voice. But between 1950 and 1971, at least 17 people went missing near her land. Hitchhikers, traveling salesmen, even a police officer just vanished. Nobody thought it could be Linda. The police believed wild animals or accidents by the river were to blame. But everything changed in 1972 when her barn caught on fire. Firefighters broke down a sealed wall inside, and what they saw was terrifying. 5 metal chairs, bolted to the ground with straps for arms and legs, a rusty sink with dried blood in the drain, and shelves of glass jars filled with fingers and other body parts. When the police arrested her, Linda didn't even look scared. She smiled and said, "I gave them a home, and they gave me company." She died 5 years later in her jail cell. But the worst part? Only 7 victims were ever found. Linda had a notebook. Inside were 17 names, each one crossed out. No one ever found the rest. This was the most evil
this
woman
is
to
true.
ever
You don't think it's true?
Her
Yeah. People say that they can't find facts supporting it.
Well, he tricked me.
Yeah.
That freaked me out.
We will find out if it is or isn't true.
I'm gonna just chat GPT it and see what it says.
This is one of those cases that doesn't sit right with me. This is Dorothy Jane Scott. She was murdered in the 1980s, and for years the killer tormented her family with phone calls. And to this day, they are still out there somewhere. So let's dive into the story. So the story of Dorothy's disappearance is really strange. On the night of May 28th, 1980, Dorothy drove 2 of her friends to the hospital, as one of them had been bitten by a spider that night. So at the end of the hospital visit, while they were waiting to get a prescription filled, Dorothy Jane walked to go grab her car and bring it up so that the 2 friends could meet her outside. And once they were outside, the friends saw Dorothy's car coming towards them, but it quickly sped off and left them there. Now, they couldn't see who exactly was in the car, who was driving, because the headlights blinded them, but in a few hours, they reported her missing because they couldn't get in contact with Dorothy. And she would be missing for years. So in the months leading up to her murder, Dorothy had acquired a stalker. She had been receiving phone calls at work from a strange, unidentified male caller. And on these phone calls, this guy would tell her how much he loved her, and then he would state that he intended on killing her soon. One day, this phantom man even told Dorothy to go outside because he left a surprise on her car, and when she went outside to look, there was a single dead rose on her windshield, which is very creepy. On one of these particularly gruesome phone calls, the caller even stated that he planned on abducting Dorothy and chopping her up into little bits so that no one would ever find her. So these phone calls obviously terrified Dorothy, and in the week leading up to her disappearance, she started taking karate lessons. Okay, so let's flash back to the night that Dorothy
Okay, hold
disappeared.
on.
Remember?
No one ever
I'm like,
no one goes, learns jujitsu, learns karate, learns fucking all this shit, and when the time comes that they're in that situation, they're like, hold on. Like, no one ever does that. Like,
I don't know. I think probably some people do. Like, you learn, like, I'm sure, after, it depends on how long you've been doing it. I mean, if you take, like, 5 classes, I don't know how much you're going to get from that. But I'm in here like, whoa, and you're like, hold on. I was like, what the hell?
yeah, I'm like, let's be real. You don't see people, like, who do jujitsu
You ever seen
get in a
those videos?
situation and they go on the floor.
Yeah, and they're like, I've been waiting for this.
Come here. Yeah, I don't know, man. She put up on that one.
Her friends were waiting for her outside of the hospital when they saw her car speed by them, but they couldn't see who was inside the vehicle. At around 4:30 a.m. that morning, 5 hours or so after they saw her car speeding away, the car was found abandoned in an alleyway 10 miles from the hospital, and it was on fire, which torched all evidence that could have been in the vehicle. So Dorothy would be missing for years, 4 years in fact. But it only took 1 week after her disappearance for the killer to start calling her own parents. So about every Wednesday afternoon for a period after Dorothy went missing, this caller would call her parents and say the strangest things. He would tell them things like, I have her. He would also claim that he was the one who killed Dorothy. He was basically tormenting her parents and saying that he knows exactly where she is and what had happened, but he was never going to tell them. Now, 4 years later, this was going on for 4 years, in April of 1984, this caller once again called Dorothy's family, but instead of her mom picking up the phone that night, her dad did. And after her dad picked up the phone calls completely stopped. That is, until a few months later. Now, in August of 1984, a construction worker would come across a set of bones that belonged to a human and a dog. And those bones were eventually revealed to be those of Dorothy's. And immediately after her remains were found, the caller once again began to call her parents. This time, the police installed a recorder that bugged the family's phones. They were trying to get this guy's voice on recording and trace the phone calls,
they barely
but
started
the
doing
calls were
this?
never long enough for them to trace, and they still had no idea who this guy was. To this day, authorities still don't know how Dorothy died. And even though the phone calls eventually stopped, the killer's never been brought to justice.
Now, the only suspect that's ever emerged in this case still doesn't have a name. It's the same guy that called, obviously, Dorothy's family, but it was a man who called a local newspaper just a few days after Dorothy went missing. And on this phone call, this guy said that he loved Dorothy, she had been cheating on him, and that he was the one who killed her. So that means that to this day, this killer is probably still out there somewhere, and they've never been brought to justice. This crime occurred over 40 years ago. There are no leads, and I don't think that this is a case that will ever be solved.
That
If
guy's
this...
probably not alive anymore. All right.
Perfect way to end our evening. It was
Yeah.
late, and it'll be fun.
Yeah, so anyways, we'll catch you guys on the next one.